our research here is trying to draw the context of what's going on, and we'll try to really answer a number of questions, but basically the main mission is to try to bring this knowledge together and hopefully to come up with some informed ideas and principles of what humanitarian heritage would mean in the Middle East, what humanitarian heritage could really re-challenge our own perceptions of the way that organizations, international partners, and even research is being conducted in the field of heritage preservation. I think our principles here is just to really put communities into the center of heritage preservation, looking at their farewell and their livelihood. But I think we have tried to expand as much as possible on our scope, but the key element here, which at the core of this workshop, is to listen rather than talk, is just to try not to come up with our own perceptions. So here the research program scope is basically try through this kind of 5 points, try to build through the existing knowledge, existing research, to try to provide a collaborative research environment, try to really come up collectively with a research program and a framework where the local and regional research partners can work with communities, as Mike mentioned, and try to really search where are the gaps that exist and check where we can really operate together. So I think we talked a lot, and I think this is perhaps a space for open forum, but we'll extend as long as we can to really to hear all the voices. So I will leave this point now to the discussion of all partners. And I think you have heard a lot of talks, you have heard from us. What do you think in terms of the key challenges that you think perhaps could be a central element to our question about humanitarian heritage? So this is an open forum, so please raise your hand and I'll try to take a question or a commentary, but please try to be brief within a minute or two maximum in either asking or commenting. It's an open to everyone.
Dr. Jamal, does the chat boxes, open? Could you check just that one more time, please?
It is open, but unfortunately, people cannot write into it. So
Okay.
we are following the same principle that we have done earlier in the day.
Okay.
If you raise your hand, anyone would like to talk, please raise your hand, and then you will get the mic to raise any points or question or even comment. If not, we can continue talking about the network. We have been working on it for 2 years, so we can talk for longer, but just I would like to hear, to listen to your views. Because we believe in the peculiarity of the Middle Eastern conditions from Iraq and heritage in different places. And I think every day, as we learn from the studies of Dr. Durgham, Dr. Ala, Dr. Sabih, we learn a number of uniqueness, even within the same country, even within the same region, even within the same city. So have any one of the speakers today encountered a major gap that they think really overlook the role of humanitarian support or the consideration of human population and communities in addressing heritage preservation? And I can easily perhaps refer to displacement in Iraq. And I know it's a major issue about the displacement of people from cities that have been largely destroyed and still not coming back to their home places. What's the impact of this on their heritage preservation? Do their heritage start to disappear? How we can preserve them? Do you think that there is a proper legislations and systems and support mechanism in place to help them or not? Are there any questions or comments?
I just want to add something just for discussing
We
with
have a hand.
other people.
Dr. Reda,
Yeah.
I think, is raising her hand is up.
I don't see
Well,
any hands.
Yes, no, we have one up here. Dr. Reda, would you like to
Yes.
unmute
I
yourself,
think
please?
now. All right, Dr. Ghada and then Dr. Durga. Please, Dr. Ghada, go ahead.
It could be muted. Could you check
Jamal,
that
can you
someone?
unmute Dr. Reda, please?
I'm not muting her. I think she needs to unmute herself. Dr. Ghada, if you can press on the mic, then it will unmute yourself and then we can hear you. Dr. Ghada? You are on mute.
Okay,
Just talk to her. I think.
until
I just talked to her. I think she has a technical issue in her laptop, and she is turning something. Then I can raise up my question.
All right, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just what we are facing now in Iraq, especially for the new generations, that the new generations somehow were disconnected from the old ones, and they are influenced by global influences, digital stuff, and so on. So this is a real challenge: how to promote their attention about their heritage, how we can encourage them to get back to their heritage more than stacking or relying on global influences. And you can see that not just in Iraq, but many communities, new generations, new communities in the Middle East.
I think this perhaps I will respond to this point unless, and please don't wait. If you have any questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. Mike is interested to respond. Please go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I understand that point, but I think we have to ask what younger generations actually want. And I don't think we need to be the people who say they should be interested in their heritage. For many younger generations, they want to escape their past. They don't want to have, they don't want to be associated with their past, or they are actively creating new heritages themselves, which perhaps don't accord with our understandings of what heritage is about. So I think we have to be really careful not to sort of have a very paternalistic approach that somehow the younger generation has to engage with their past. I think we need to understand what they want from their life, from their society, and what they want for their future. So I'm a little bit cautious. I was just a little bit cautious about the language there. I mean, I take the point because, you know, heritage has a value for lots of people in society, but sometimes we need to find out what it really means to people. And I know from other parts of the world, many younger generations, they don't want to look back. They want to look to the future. So if we can get them to think about how heritage was once new, then perhaps they might want to engage with it a little bit more. But for some young people, it's an old thing. It's the only people who are interested in it are heritage professionals and academics. And I know from working with younger people in places like Cambodia, Vietnam, they want to forget the past, and they have a right to forget. So I think we just need to be careful with our language.
Thanks a lot, Mike. And this is a very important point that keeps coming as well. Just Dr. Gada, this your, please, can you take the mic and then raise your point?
Okay, thank you. We really listened to so many good presentations today, and there were so many good points. I just want to add about what you said about the displacement of people. Of course, we have a problem in Iraq, but really there is another problem, which is bigger, I think. It's not the displacement in the same country. It is the migration. The migration, which started, let's see, in Iraq, it started with the changes of regimes since the kingdom went on, the republic came, and then in 1968, in the 70s, mainly in the 90s with the sanctions, and after 2003 with the Violence Act. And there's disappearing groups of people, disappearing communities. And also, as I heard from Mike, there is a disappearing languages as well. For example, the Syriac language, the community language in Iraq. The Sabian Mandians are very few now in Iraq. Certain other minorities, the Yazidis, the Christians. We have so many abandoned, like about 30 or 40 churches in Mosul, the city I was born in. Nobody's there. So this is a big problem. And how do we get? In my presentation, I thought and I said that they take their images with them. But what about this country? What about these places? I think this is a big problem that should be handled or studied very well.
Thank you, Dr. Gada. I think it's very, very critical point, and I agree with you that the diaspora of communities in the Middle East is just, it is a huge missing piece of the heritage of the cities in the Middle East. And I think when we have another project working on Mosul, old Mosul, and it's fascinating to discover the number of Christian and even Jewish buildings that are really there, but nobody even aware of what they are and what they are related to and so on. Because as you mentioned, people moved on and then left the country at some stage, and then this becomes left behind. And I think this perhaps a core of our network is just no one left behind. This is a kind of a big quote that we try to take it very seriously. And I think these communities abroad are very much part of this. And when we were doing some analysis of the community of diversity of Mosul, which is very part of the spirit of Mosul itself, we had to interview a number of people in the UK who have not been in Iraq and Mosul for 50 years, but actually they have a clarity of what heritage in certain parts of the city was, more than even people who live there today. So these kind of multi-generational narratives even change with time because people move from one place to another. And it's very important really not to lose track of that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a major, major issue, especially with Iraqi. Lots of communities were really leaving Iraq. But I hope that this perhaps could be a very important theme by focusing on the human elements of the humanitarian needs and values of heritage rather than just heritage as a physical asset. Are there anyone who would like to add or comment on this particular point? Mike, go ahead. You are muted, and please just a few minutes to allow further comments, please.
Yes, very briefly. I just wanted to emphasize that point about what we would call diasporic heritage and how, or mobile heritage, and how communities now take their own heritage, particularly their intangible heritage, with them. And that may be something that within the network we want to engage with a little bit more if we are beyond boundaries. I mean, you know, you speak about the Iraqi population in the UK. There's 30,000 Iraqis in Algeria, 30,000 in Libya, massive communities in the US. And, you know, if we talk about diaspora from parts of the region, 23 million Lebanese around the world. I mean, you know, it would be it's an interesting exercise to understand how people take their heritages with them. You know, what they leave behind, but then also what they generate in the absence of the physical. And we have seen this in, I mean, you know, I work in the city of Birmingham. Birmingham has 85 different languages spoken, 120 different cultures represented, and anybody would think that, you know, people leave their heritages behind when they come from Bangladesh or Pakistan or Sudan, but they don't. They recreate them. They bring some things with them, and they take things back when they can. So I think there's mobility. The mobility of heritage is something that, you know, we should be all thinking about that, because the world is mobile for different reasons. I mean, we talk about displacement, war, etc., many different reasons. But I think if we can, through the network, we can engage with these mobilities of heritage, I think that would be a really interesting and important dimension, I think, to look at.
Thanks a lot, Mike, and thanks, Dr. Agada, for a very important question. We have a question from Dr. Jafar Jothri. Please, Dr. Jafar.
Yes, thank you very much for all of these interesting talks. Actually, I would like to share my experience in young people heritage. I mean, I have been working in heritage since the last 15 years. And I saw a big like revolution or development in the public awareness of heritage, both in educated or not educated people. For example, we have you know, a small city, town, or a village. They use the social media to advertise their heritage. For example, they set out a Facebook page about the heritage of this local people, whether tangible or intangible heritage. And this is actually, it's common now, for example, in Basra, Nasriya, Babylon, Diwania, even in Baghdad. So a small city far away from the citizen, most of I mean, farmer or shepherd or villager people, they set out a Facebook page, and from time to time they post about the ancient building or some people there, names, ritual things, or celebration, and so on. I mean, the uneducated people now became maybe more interested in their heritage. The social media actually played a positive impact on the Iraqi heritage. For example, I saw most of the uneducated people the World Heritage site when the Iraqi government tried to put them on the list. Most of the fun was uneducated people. And this came from two things, actually. We have lots of Iraqi archaeologists, Iraqi young archaeologists, because we have 10 governmental institutions to study the field of archaeology in Iraq. I mean, the government actually focused on establishing new faculties and departments in each university. That was a good, actually good strategy. And the second thing is the religious issue. When the Supermi religious people in Najaf actually issued a fatwa saying that heritage is really important, and the smuggling or looting artifacts. So these two things actually, ordinary people or uneducated people to to be more aware of their heritage. So I mean, we are generally in a good shape in terms of the awareness of the local people about their heritage, which is really important things. I know lots of international organizations who support this initiative or this issue by providing the uneducated or ordinary people a project to save or to care more about their heritage. I know lots of NGOs actually, most of them not educated people, sheikh or but sometimes they do a march or the riot against their local government to an ancient cemetery, to save an ancient house or an ancient building in their local city, which is something I think something is really important. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Jafar. And before bring anyone to comment on this, I would like to invite Dr. Mahmoud Khayyat. He might make a relevant point or a different point, then we can really comment or add to these points. Dr. Mahmoud?
Yes. Actually, I am very impressed for all these works. I may suggest an addition to the activities of Iraqi Hub. From my experience, we have a lot of work of documentation through hundreds of years, or if not say thousands of years, but all these documentations are fragmented here and there. And if we take the opportunity of this network to be a place, institutional documentation for other people's work who worked before us and our students, our researchers, and put it in peer-reviewed, of course. So these documents should be peer-reviewed and put in a corner in this network memory, and be free access for researchers. It will be an encyclopedia type of registered memories, or Iraqi registered memories. It's a suggestion. I'm not sure how applicable it is, but from from listening to other people's talks, I think I thought it is necessary to raise this point. And thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Dr. Mahmoud and Dr. Jafar. I think these are very important points. With regard to the database, I think part of the network is just to try to build gradually this kind of database, repository about the research, heritage research. And this is not for us to really administer, but just for people, scholars like incredible lineup of the talks today can come and they saying, I would like to put this on the network. And then we will simply take it and then we'll put it there. And then we'll start to create a keywords where you can identify this kind of search engine. But this will be accumulation of long-term job. But I think today, and this is perhaps what you're gonna see, that the talks that has been presented today would be provided in a kind of a smaller clips, each one identifying the theme, the city, and so and the talk and the scholar, of course, more than anything else. They will be displayed. If any of our colleagues here today would like to share documents or papers published or research, even if they are a brief documents, of course, that would be really incredible resource. And part of this network is actually to put this material together. So I think you are absolutely right, because as a researcher, every one of us does a lot of research and then it goes sometimes in certain places that very hard to find. And we are hopeful that Engage Network and Iraq Hub will really establish a very strong center where you can really find out about this material and information. But Dr. Jafar, I think the point about young people is very, very much into this. It's about the sustainable development. It's about looking to the future generations. And that's why we are putting the network is funded on the basis of responding to 4 criteria for the SDGs, and one of them quality education, addressing inequality and gender equality, along with as part of the sustainable cities and historic cities. And all of these, we think heritage is a critical part of education, but needs to be integrated within education as a more inclusive education, rather than only teaching heritage for the sake of history. And it's part of the culture, as perhaps Mike mentioned. So when it comes to economy, it is integrated. And this is what successful historic cities do. It's integrated in every way of segment of life. So it has become natural or second nature to learn about your heritage. And if you depart from this point, then the heritage starts to get broken. And that's why displacement, diaspora, this is where the tension occur. And I think once we look at this in a more inclusive approach, how heritage to looking back at the community, how it is part of the community way of life, economic affordabilities, economic activities, trade, income, and so on, then heritage becomes a second nature. And I think how this will help the livelihood of those young people, providing them job opportunities, way into the future, I think it's very critical in that sense. And that's why the agenda of heritage is never isolated about historic buildings or preserving assets. It's about people first, and then the heritage will be preserved as a consequence. And I think Mike will perhaps reflect on other successful models in Europe when this becomes a model of not looking to building as itself, but it's a part of integrated society, integrated agenda for society. Anybody would like to comment or add points or discuss these 2 important issues?
Gamal?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Yeah, on this topic about young people and heritage, I would like to add to what was said, that sometimes is also the way we talk to them and also the way we carry the message to young people. I participate in a research project in a small town in the north of the country, Portugal, with a historical center. And we had a challenge that was to introduce young people to heritage issues. We noticed that young people they weren't available to listen to institutional narratives regarding the local heritage. And we then try to understand how we could deliver the message to high school students. We work with the high school students, and we put old people doing something that they like to do, that it's to tell stories, personal stories, and personal stories attached to the buildings that were in the historical center of the town. And we put the young people with mobiles recording with audio and filming and video the stories that old people were saying about their experience, their life experience in those buildings. And then we start to understand that this kind of way of communicating the relevance of heritage of those buildings to people's life was starting to get into the young students' head, and they understood, and they start to understood the relevance of those buildings besides the institutional, the town hall, the city hall narrative regarding that historic center. And then we put all the old people and the young students walking around the city and do a collaborative mapping with the Google platform. And they were starting to put some pins in some buildings and then to allocate the videos and the audios of the stories of the people to the buildings. And then we create an application that the young students put on their mobiles, and they start to go around the city and try to find out the stories associated to the buildings. the personal stories associated to the buildings. It was a rich experience because this was a border town with a lot of stories between the cities on the both sides of the river that separates Portugal from Spain. And it was very interesting to understand how that institutional narrative start to be blended in personal narratives, and now young people start to understand the relevance for the daily life of those older people with that stories, and that was a way to decrystallize, to de-institutional the building and the heritage. It was something that the young students and the young people start to understand that those buildings were part of people's lives, and that was the way to kick off the interest of the young people. Then we made the exhibition with the students and the old people participating in, and we challenged the people, the residents in this town to discover the heritage by following the personal stories of the buildings that they could find. So every building, all the buildings that we selected, they had different stories that you could see by videos, by audio, by photographs on the archives. We put then the students going to the library and look for the photographs, the old photographs of the buildings, to connect to the stories of the people, the old people. So it was this is just to say that it was a different way to communicate the relevance of heritage to young people, rather than the institutional narrative. This is an important building. Yeah, but why do you think this is an important building? Because you have architectural elements that are important. Yeah, but I don't care about. So these have a formal language that it's interesting. Yeah, but I don't care. So I think sometimes we need to make the effort to understand how we deliver the message to the target people that we want to get to. Sometimes they are not interested in. Sometimes they are not even able to get the message because we are not getting the right language to put the message on their minds, on their brains. That's a kind of way to understand, the best way to communicate. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Just because we are coming to a close, and we know that our colleagues in Iraq is already 20 past 5 p.m. and our colleagues in India add to this another 2.5 hours. So they are very much in the evening. And to be honest, this was meant to be as a kickstart to launch our research program and to listen. And what a start this is, to be honest. It's just the wealth and knowledge and richness of the studies and the diversity of research projects, NGOs, stakeholders, and policymakers. The conversations was incredible. And I think it far exceeded our expectations from the learning that we had, learning exercise we had today. So all credit and thanks a lot to Iraqi Hub team, Dr. Sabih, Dr. Durgam, and Dr. Aola in particular, who really have been the machine, the engine working 24/7 behind this, bring all of those people together. And I think just please don't be annoyed if we approach you, if we would like to learn more from you, if you have anything that you think will be, you are interested and to share with us, please consider that Engage Network Iraq Hub is basically trying to engage with you and to learn as much as possible, but also to help other parts of the world as an open resource, as Dr. Mahmoud mentioned, really learn from your expertise. We will try from time to time to come up with a few events, like reports to really share with you for consultation. Hopefully we'll reach a point where we can have some charter, just principle of what is humanitarian heritage is, have the people's input and opinions, and see how we can really challenge the way that heritage is being preserved and looked at from different institutional point of view. And if we manage to really add 1 or 2, 3 points on the agenda for policymakers, for stakeholders, for local, improve that small bit here and there, I think we will have done a good job. Really, thank you so much, and thanks for the whole team of the co-investigators, the research team in Iraq, and we look forward to really meeting our teams in India in 4 weeks' time, when we will be hearing more, learning more from the India context. And please, you are all invited to join the event, which will be similar to this one, open and accessible online, and we'll have a lot of participation from different parts of India and South Asia, and hopefully we will exchange knowledge with them as well. I really appreciate your time and really grateful for all that work. And Dr. Sabih, you are the host. The final word goes to you, and really appreciated. We are incredibly grateful for your hospitality and incredible organization.
Thank you so much, Professor Jamal, to you and all our co-investigators and our team and our attendants from different universities and institutions. And we look forward to meet you again in another workshop in India. Thank you, Professor Jamal.